Hello, I'm Laura Furiosi, divorced mother of 3, and I'm here with my mother, Lynette Galvin, with 35 years experience in family law. You're listening to the Divorce Course podcast. Through our candid discussions, we hope to help you through your divorce or de facto separation. We will be answering the most commonly asked questions and covering the stages and steps that you will face on your way to freedom. Divorce negotiations with a narcissist. Doesn't that sound like a mouthful? Today, we are talking with the amazing Mia from Grey Rock Consulting, and she's going to give us a really interesting strategy called Slay. Welcome, Mia.
Thank you so much for having me. I love coming back.
Hello, Mum. Welcome, Mum. Thank you for coming too. So we did an episode with you in the past, and we've done a very popular one with you in the way back when about co-parenting. And I really am really excited to hear about this new process that you've learnt about. So can you tell us a little bit about the lady that you've learnt from, and what is it that you've learnt, and how can you share some of that with our listeners today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure most of the people in this space have heard of Rebecca Zung. She's a top 1% attorney in America, and she is absolutely an expert in the field of narcissism and negotiating with them and getting outcomes, because we all know it's not quick and it's not easy. And she created something called the SLAY method, which I love the name of, but it actually is an acronym, and it stands for strategy, leverage. A is for anticipate and you. It is a really, really effective program.
Oh, wow.
My goodness.
That sounds
great.
That sounds like a martial art with a black belt. How did this strategy to deal with them come from her background, her experience, for anybody who doesn't know who she is?
Yeah, so she had an experience with a business partner, and then also experience as a lawyer herself, and realised there are some real techniques that you can implement to get an outcome with these personalities. And I think the key to it all, and where the difference lies, is you are not negotiating with, a reasonable human being or someone who wants agreement and resolution and to move on. You're just not. So it changes the approach completely.
So do you want to talk us through this first bit about know who you're dealing with, and tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so this would obviously form part of your greater strategy, but I always start by saying you must know who you are dealing with. And it sounds very easy, but it's actually quite difficult once you, especially in a family or a divorce setting, to sit down and really map out the patterns and the behaviours of someone who you loved so dearly and potentially still do love. So I hear everyone and how hard that is. But if you're really honest and you write down all those behaviours and all those patterns, understand, some people sit down and go, well, am I dealing with someone who's more covert, more grandiose, more malignant? It absolutely is critical to informing your strategy and the way you approach negotiating with those personality types.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of ties in, I guess, with our divorce course personality types, because we've realised, and Mum noticed over her 35 years, that you can't approach divorcing someone in the same way for every type, because we've got the avoidant types who don't want to read a letter, they don't want to go to mediation, they don't even want to face up to the fact you're getting divorced. And then you've got the amicable who, might be amicable, or they might pretend to be amicable. But of course, you're not going to write a letter to that person the same way you would to an avoidant.
Yeah.
And then you've got your high conflict, obviously, who is the type we're talking about today. And then you've got your manipulative and controlling, who can also kind of sometimes fall into that strategy. But Mum, it's really important, isn't it? That's what you do when you see a client.
Yes.
So you always ask them.
I've always done it, and you probably have, Mia, but I always make some inquiries about the type of person. Did that person, were they secretive with their mail? Were they easygoing? How have they been with family and friends? How were they as business partners? And that, once you know that you're out of that relationship, you are just on the same level as a business partner to them. No, maybe with more intensity.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe a little bit more emotion. So, so understanding, the types. So, okay. So then talk us through what else do they need to do?
So as part of, knowing who you're dealing with, I guess when you're talking about a negotiation, we touched on this in the previous podcast around mindset being so important. But a successful outcome in a negotiation, you need to know the other side. You need to know the other side. So yes, the type, yes, the behaviours, but you also need to know, what do they really, really, really want in this? What matters to them most? Is it the career? Is it the paycheck? Is it, what their fake celebrity friends think of them? Figure out what it is that is driving them, what their external validation is that matters to them, their assets, their liabilities, all of it. All of it. Know the other side's case just as well as you know your own.
Come in, you know what they're going to be like. So how do you create a strategy to negotiate with them if you've got people have got mediations coming up, or maybe they haven't even got to that bit yet. They're sitting at the kitchen table and they're just going, let's try not to use lawyers and maybe we can sort this out together. So what do people do? Like, what are you supposed to do?
And maybe, if they say to you, let's not get lawyers involved and let's resolve it, you don't need to tell them that you've gotten legal advice or that you're getting legal advice. You don't need to disclose that at all. There'll come a point potentially, but let them say whatever they want to say. You must be informed in the background about the legal lay of the land, how things will work, your entitlements. They just don't need to know about it at the get-go. So your starting point, once you figured out who they all are, is your super strong strategy, right? So this will be, the entire foundation to the negotiation. And if you don't have it, you will not get the outcome that you want. So you need that strategy. And how do you do it? Well, there's a couple of things to that. You need what we call a vision, your guiding compass. So this gives you your direction, and it's what guides you when you're not sure. It's got nothing to do with them. So it could be, I want a, fair financial outcome, or I want what's best for the children, or something like that. And that's what's going to guide you when things get difficult. The other element to a super strong strategy, you've got your vision. The other element is your action plan. You can't just have a vision and an idea and not do anything about it. So your roadmap, what are the steps that you're going to take to bring this vision to life? So again, your roadmap to get you to your desired outcome. And you might need a plan A, a plan B.
But Mum, you always talk about one of the ways to, have some control, and it doesn't matter what they do. If you've got a plan A and a plan B, when you send that letter saying, can you please give us a response? Mm-hmm. Can you please agree to do this? And what is that plan A, plan B situation?
Yeah, well, the way I like to do it is I don't say, give us a response. I say, by 2:00 on the date. I don't say 7 days. I say on the 16th of November, 2:00. If you don't answer, then this is what we're going to do. And then prepare for that, because some people act surprised when the proposal or the directions they want or the documents they've requested don't arrive by 2:00 on the 14th of November. And they go, oh, what are we going to do now? And then they worry about it. And so it's better right at the beginning, when you write that letter, you make a plan. If there's no response, the reason I do it by 2:00 is because by 4:00, I will have filed a document in the court if I need to get the ball rolling, or mediation. And then they're either going to say yes, they're going to say no, or they're going to ignore. And I have a plan for each, so that it's not going to be giving them the power over how quickly this process goes. Am I a good student, Mia?
I was going to say, I think this is why having a family lawyer like yourself, who understands the personality, because you've got a client who is probably scared, full of guilt, shame, fear, not knowing what's going to happen, and having a lawyer that says, this is what we're going to do, they're likely going to ignore it. So when they do, this is the next step I'm going to take. And what this means is A, B, C. So that calms them. So it's not like, oh, they haven't responded. What do we do now? Oh, my gosh. They know what's coming. So this is why you have to understand the personality you're dealing with. But then also you've got to hold them to account. So like you said, Lynn, respond by this date, 2 p.m. And if they don't, you're not a toothless tiger and you do nothing. You then hold them to account. So like you said, my application to the court is ready to go.
Does that take us on to leverage? Do we talk about leverage? Because that sounds scary. Like when it comes to dealing with your ex, leverage is scary, I think.
Do you think?
I don't know. It just sounds scary. So please explain it, Mia.
So I'm the opposite. Leverage excites me, which, as I say it out loud, is a very sad reflection of what excites me.
I think it was Aristotle that says, give me a lever and I can move the world, or one of those ancient Roman people or Greek. And I've always found levers exciting.
Well, you're both lawyers, so that
We're
makes sense, yes.
I'm not alone. But, leverage is exciting because nobody realizes that they have it. And they sit back and they're like, I don't have any leverage. But when you go down into the detail or the particular issue that they are navigating, they absolutely always do. Now, your leverage is what is going to incentivize the other side or to agree or to reach a resolution. So it's again, I've probably said this too many times, that is why it is so important to know what they actually want. What do they really want in all of this? What matters to them? And that's going to play into your leverage. What are they motivated by? What do they desire? What is their supply source? And when I say supply source, a lot of people think narcissists are driven by a desire to win. They want to win. Now, don't get me wrong. They love winning. Narcissists are driven by narcissistic supply, which is the external. And it's either, Rebecca refers to it as diamond level or like coal level supply. Diamond level supply is the job, the accolades, the friendships, the car they drive, the house they live in, those diamond level sources of supply that make them feel so good to the outside world. The coal level supply is the underbelly, the intimidation, the bullying, the lying, the real yucky stuff. They want both, but they'll give up the yucky stuff for the diamond stuff. So all of these sorts of things, it's so important to know.
And I guess have you been married to this person or you've lived with this person for 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, you're probably more than anybody else likely to know what it is that they want. And if you sit down and really think about it, what was their motivation, I guess, at a birthday event? What is it that really mattered to them
I mean, sometimes when you know what motivates them, it's easier to negotiate because if you know someone is perhaps really all about the outside world, then they're happy to give you money as long as it doesn't threaten their outside world. It might be that they'll give their super away so that to the rest of the world, they still look high. But on the other hand, if they've been really keen on their super and retiring, then you can turn that around. And like I said, Mia, when they send those long, long letters or long emails, word salads, in there is where you'll find that answer.
So I might give an example if it's going to help as well, because you don't want to remove their source of supply, but you want to make them feel like it's, threatened is a strong word, but it's at risk. So say your ex, the most important thing to him is his career, because he's got a high rolling job and his title's great and all these sorts of things. So say he's not providing full financial disclosure and you think that things are missing, of course, subject to legal advice and where you're living, you can always then say, look, I don't feel that everything's being provided. I might just have to subpoena your boss or your work. They're going to, because they don't want their boss or their work to know that this is what's going on.
I think, Mia, though, you've got to be very careful doing that, though, with some types of people, because that's just too much for them.
Yeah, so I guess as Mia's just said, so this general education only, of course, everything you do, you go and see a lawyer, you get independent legal advice. We're just talking about strategies that you could consider. Talk to them with your lawyer and think about them.
Keep safe. Trust your gut.
Yeah, and trust your gut, because if it is a unsafe, coercive, controlling situation, you don't want to press anything that may end up causing you more harm than good. But so that's important to remember that. But yes, so that's a good point. That's a good example.
And I think as well with leverage, it's important to remember, timing is everything. You don't just, every little bit you think that might help, you don't just put it all out on the table, the first mediation. You've really got to think about when you let them know of your leverage. And in this context as well, I stayed until I'm blue in the face, documentation. Having a good documentation system. It's exhausting, I understand, but this is what's really going to help you as well.
So what you're really saying is we need a game plan. So you come out of your divorce, and again, we've talked about this. You're super stressed, you're single parenting, you're trying to make ends meet with maybe if you're going for financial control as well, you've probably not got the normal amount of funds you used to.
And the kids are playing up because they always play up at separation.
But you've got to pull up your big girl pants or your big boy pants and go, no, I've got to come in with a game plan. I've got to come in with strategy, and I've got to really think about, what's their motivation and what leverage do I have, and really tactically think about this, because I guess people who stick their head in the sand and just hope their lawyer is going to get them to the other end, unfortunately, your lawyer doesn't know your ex. Your lawyer can strategize and game plan as much money you can throw at them. They'll do it till you run out of money. But if you don't say, hey, this is what leverage you can use, or this is what motivates them, and this, how can we use this? They're not going to know. Is that right, Mum?
Right.
If you don't know?
That's right. You're the expert on this person because you're married to them. So, yes, the good lawyers like us will engage the client. And I always say, I'll send you the letter in draft, and you can tell me if anything in there is going to trigger your ex, like calling him a secretary or something when they're actually a clerical assistant. And so I think I use that to make sure I package it properly.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that made me laugh so much because you're so right. That would really, really offend them. But I also think in this context, it's important to remember that this is really about protecting yourself and getting resolution. There's nothing underhanded about having a strategy and about knowing your leverage and when to pull the lever and let them know about it. This is not coming from, a murky place. It is about getting resolution, and it's also about saving you money as well, because if you map out all of this and say to your lawyer, here's my thoughts, well, you've just saved yourself from having the lawyer do it all and then you rewrite it and you think about it again, all those sorts of things. So if you can think about this as looking after you to get an outcome.
And Mia, we do have we feel a little bit squirmy sometimes about using people's personality types to style the strategies that we would use. But I always say it's not just for you. It's also, whether they know it or not, it's for the other side, for your ex. They're probably very afraid of what the outcome's going to be as well and don't want to face it. And also you're doing it for the kids. So that's how I square my conscience away with having a strategy. You might think family lawyers don't have consciences, but I do.
So Mia, what's the A in slay? You can find us on Instagram, Facebook and TikTok. We're there waiting for you right now. If you want to get more out of the Divorce Course, all you have to do is go to the Divorce Course podcast at Facebook or TikTok, or the Divorce Course on Instagram. There we share bite-sized pieces of information and bite-sized inspiration and motivation to help you through this difficult time. Come and join our community and let us know you've joined. We'd love to see you there. Talk us through the A in slay.
A is for anticipate. Anticipating what they are going to do and staying 2 steps ahead. And Lynn touched on this before. We're going to send a letter. We're going to say produce this by this date and this time. They're likely not going to comply. And when they don't comply, this is what I'm going to do. Or I'll say by 2 p.m, knowing them, they'll send it at 3 p.m. just to feel like they've got one over. So I'm going to give them an extra hour. Potentially, you've got to make a call on it. And if it's not there within the hour, then I'm filing my application. This is what anticipating and staying ahead means. So, again, when you know who you're dealing with, you know how they will behave and you'll know what they do. And it takes the sting out of it when they do it.
I think a lot of, again, thinking about our listeners today who are at home, one of the things that does tend to happen, I think, for them coming out of like these kind of relationships is they are really anticipating because they've been walking on eggshells the entire relationship. I guess they could use that as a superpower in knowing, okay, well, I had to walk on eggshells around this part of him or this part of her. So I anticipate in the future that if this happened, this is probably going to be their reaction. Is that kind of things you can use to anticipate?
I agree with you about it being a superpower. And again, that's a mindset shift too, where you look at all their behaviours and patterns, and a lot of people are fearful of them. Completely understandable, and are stuck in a position of fear and shame and guilt and all those horrible, horrible emotions. But it is your superpower, because if you flip it, you're like, oh, I know what you're going to do next. Oh, and you can predict it. And then you're kind of preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. You are responding. You're not reacting. You're getting out of that ruminating and being like, I sent this letter and then he didn't even respond and he didn't even provide all the document. Can you believe it? Because that goes because you're like, I knew he wasn't going to do it, or I knew she wasn't going to provide it, or I knew she'd provide the wrong document and it's on purpose. All those sorts of things. Can you see how it is a superpower? Because you're just like, oh yeah, plan B now, know what I'm going to do next. It's so empowering.
Is there a boundary though for going from having that superpower of knowing what eggshells and what they anticipate, what their reactions are going to be, to pushing it too far and being paranoid? And I know I hate that word when people say, oh, you're just paranoid. Can people take that too far and just be to a level of they're just freaking out every 5 seconds that person's going to do something? Or is that still, you can still harness that and use it as a superpower?
It's tricky, isn't it? I always come back to, trust your gut, trust your intuition. And you know this person so well. So even that example before when I said, well, if you know that his career is everything or her career is everything to them, then maybe you start talking about, well, I'm just going to have to subpoena from your employer your pay records because I don't think you're being honest. And Lynn rightly so said that might be going a step too far for some. Absolutely. You know it. You already know that. So listen to your intuition, listen to your gut. On the same hand, don't listen to people who haven't walked in your shoes and want to say, oh, look, he's not that bad. Yes, he can be a bit difficult. But look, for the kids, just sign up to all these things so you can move on. And they might be coming from the most well-meaning of places, but if they don't understand the situation you're in, that well-meaning advice is actually really bad advice. So come back to get advice from the people who get it and your gut.
The other thing that happens, I think, if you know a person, how they're likely to respond, one of three ways. You won't spend, I've had clients who'll spend every day leading up to that 2:00 on the 16th of November or whatever. Oh my God, what if he doesn't answer? Oh my God, what if he doesn't answer? So the sooner you've got that in place, you go, oh, well, that's fine. We'll just do this, or we'll just do this. And, it does, I think it's important for people to have a strategy for moving forward, but yeah, and trusting your gut is really, it's scary for a person even to write a lawyer letter to their ex, who, if they've had them over the barrel and been dominating all of the time, it's like it would make people sick at the thought of sending the letter. People have to go through it. They have to get their counselling.
I was just going to say that I think if you can remember when they bark at you for something like, oh, I can't believe you've got lawyers involved, this is the worst thing ever. It's going to drag everything out. They're going to chew into all the money and all these sorts of things. And then I've heard about your lawyer and they're the worst. And I heard that this is what they do. Blah, 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 blah. When they bark like that, they are projecting, because that is exactly what they would have done to you. So when they get angry at you for something, that is what they are doing or what they would have done. Or alternatively, they're angry because they wanted to pull the wool over your eyes. And now you've got someone there who's giving you advice and saying 5% of the asset pool is not fair.
So I think you're right. I think a lot of the projection that happens, until you're aware of it, it feels like an attack. But it gets that, all goes back to that mindset as, again, of shifting it and going, oh, you're carrying on like a pork chop. Now I've realised that's what you've been doing, or that's what you would have done. And
I always see that people write, you get a letter saying, and your client's hiding money. Oh, I say, are you hiding money? Because that's what you would do. I always check with my client, but yes, they do.
Exactly.
But you would have heard it so many times that they say, oh, let's not involve lawyers. Let's not bother the lawyers. They'll take our children's money and all of that. But we say in our course, we say, go and see a lawyer at least to find out what you're entitled to, because I think many times when a person's saying, let's not get lawyers involved, they have had their legal advice.
Yeah.
And if you do sign that document, whatever, you're the only one who hasn't had legal advice.
So like one of our most popular TikToks ever is Amanda sitting there going, I know you and you know you and I know you that I know you. And up it says, when your ex tells you not to go and see a lawyer because they've already seen one and they don't like the answer. Because that's really what it comes down to. It's that reflection and anger. So let's get into the last letter of SLAY. So we've had leverage is L, anticipate is A. What's Y?
So Y is you. So we've had a discussion previously about the importance of mindset. This is quite a shift for people because they're so focused on them. So this is about focusing on you and your position. And the reason this is so important is, this is your real power. It actually keeps you on the offensive instead of the defensive, and you yourself believe you can win. If you don't believe that you can get an outcome or that you can win, then you're wasting your time. You have to believe that you can win and get a resolution. So people are probably going to go, well, that all sounds great, but how do I do that? So, it's things like, don't be afraid. Take baby steps in changing these things. And like I've mentioned previously, those baby steps will course correct and eventually become a U-turn, and you're going in a different direction, a better direction for you. Yeah, again, winning is all about your mindset. You've got to believe that you can win. Know what you can negotiate with them. And what I mean by that is you can negotiate contracts, issues, draft orders. Do you know what you can't negotiate? Your self-respect, your boundaries, your self-esteem, all of those things. Be very clear on what they are. They are non-negotiable. So when you get something come your way and everything in you goes, oh, no, but I would never, trust all of that. They are non-negotiables. They are off the table. Also, again, your boundaries are, I can't stress this enough. Your boundaries are your strengths, and they are the narcissist kryptonite. They truly, truly are. Know them, stick to them. Self-care. I know people are probably thinking, but how and when? I'm a single parent and I've got school and I've got work and I've got kids and then I've got a court process and I've got him and I've got her. I get it. Self-care. And it doesn't have to be a $1,000 1-hour spa treatment or something like that. It can be simple as getting out for a walk for 10 minutes and clearing your mind and nature and fresh air. Whatever it is that helps your system calm and make you feel a little bit restored and replenished. Another one I will say, I think I've mentioned it before, keep taking the high road. I know it's really, really difficult because sometimes you just think this is so unfair. They keep getting in the dirt. They keep doing the wrong thing. They're manipulating things. Do not play at that level. You would be playing with the absolute best expert master of playing dirty. Do not get into that fight. You will never, ever win, and nor do you want to. Their behaviours will speak for themselves. Yep. The mask always drops. So keep taking the high road.
And I think that's very important during divorce to remember that, especially Mum, you can tell us a little bit about that. If you're going to be getting down in the dirty, writing nasty letters and doing exactly what they're doing, when you get in front of a court with affidavits, with those, you look as bad as each other. Is that what usually happens?
Yep, that's what I find too. And it's hard, Mayor, because isn't it the client goes, he's getting away with this. She's saying these things and they're not true. But it's hard for people to realise that their comeuppance, as I call it, will come. And that is on the day they're in a witness box being cross-examined, but not before. It almost never happens before. And sometimes when people settle, when they haven't had their comeuppance, the other side's never been taken to task, they can have trouble accepting that settlement. So that needs a bit of work as well because you're not focusing on them. You've got your money, you need you're out.
And I guess that's why it's important to, right from the beginning, you're looking at what is it that you want? What's your game plan? What are you going in there? And when you're going through divorce, when you're going through court, your game plan isn't to expose them as a narcissist. Your game plan is to get out with the amount of property that you want and the amount of time you want with the children with the best outcome. And if it means they don't get their comeuppance because you skip a trial and they never get to sit in the witness box, so be it. You've got what you've wanted. And I think that's that mindset of making sure they don't derail you and it turns into this ridiculous fight, which, they do deserve their comeuppance. But you walking away with what you wanted in court, with your head held high and your dignity and your morals intact is probably the best revenge you can get.
Yep. And if it doesn't upset them, who cares?
Yeah.
You've got.
Yeah. I was going to say as well on the comeuppance point, I completely understand where you're like, the court needs to see or everyone needs to see. And this is why we shift the focus back onto you and the outcome that you want, because their comeuppance is not your responsibility. And can I just say, they've got comeuppance every day. And what I mean by that is they are living a hollow life. They are driven entirely by the external and how someone makes them feel or how they look in the mirror. They've got nothing coming from the inside. They're just like a deep, dark void. So their everyday is not pretty at all. And, if you don't get to a trial and you reach a resolution, that's great, actually. Be free of them. Their comeuppance will come in whichever form it's meant to. Move forward and live your life.
Yeah.
Good words, wise words, Mia.
Yeah. So can you just tell us the SLAY from the start, just a little mini SLAY, what they stand for, and any last words you'd want to say to our listeners today?
Yeah, absolutely. So slay, which I love the word in the context as well, how to negotiate with the narcissists, you got to slay them. So slay stands for strategy, leverage, anticipate, and use.
Right. Perfect.
Yeah.
And so maybe when our listeners, when you're going through your day-to-day or having to co-parent with them or negotiating at a mediation, remind yourself of those 4 letters and make sure that you are sticking to them like glue, because they wouldn't be teaching them if they didn't work.
That's right. It's wonderful to have a strategy for moving forward. It's wonderful. I'm really glad. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe I'm not sure if it'd be helpful, but what if we can pop maybe in the notes for the show a link to, obviously if they want to reach out to me to help them through all of this through Grey Rock Consulting, absolutely. But also maybe a link to Slay as well if they want to know more about that.
Perfect. We will do that. And Mia, so if people do want to learn more about the Slay process or if they want to work with you, how do they do that? How can they find you?
Yeah, so please reach out to me. You can either jump on Instagram, Grey Rock Consulting, and you can contact me through Instagram, or you can jump on my website, www.greyrockconsulting.com.au. I do offer a discovery call so we can understand what the situation is and what you need and working together and how that would go. So please do it, because if there's ever going to be a day to make a decision to choose you, do it now.
And to everyone who's listening out there, we've got I think 4 episodes maybe with Mia. I'll put them in the show notes as well so you can listen to our other ones, and also our Narcissist Playbook in Divorce, where Mum basically talks you through what she's seen happen pretty much step by step, verbatim, to everybody who's had an ex like that. And again, when it comes to this term narcissist, none of us are psychologists. I'd say it's a pop culture term technically really these days, but it is the personality traits. And people can have narcissistic personality traits and not be a narcissist. So, I think this is helpful for anyone. Even if you don't have a narcissistic ex, these strategies are a really, really good, perfect way for you to forge forwards.
I think when I started out, I didn't understand. I knew who Narcissus was, who was an ancient god who fell in love with reflection. But I used to think of them as shallow and selfish, like the other people on the other side, and then you just knew how to deal with those.
So I can't thank you enough, Mia, for coming along again and sharing your wisdom with us.
Lovely to see you.
We would love to have you on a webinar to actually answer some questions for our listeners. So
I'd love that.
we will definitely, if you're happy to do that, we're going to arrange that. And if any of our listeners have any questions for Mia, you can email us at thedivorcecourspodcast@gmail.com. And if you would love us to do another episode about a topic with Mia, you can also email us and let us know, and we will be in touch. And hopefully everybody got something slayful out of this today. And thank you, Mia, for your knowledge. And Mum, do you have any wise wisdom words to say?
Any wise words
to say?
Like I always say, you will get through this. You might not realize it now, and your life will be so much better when you're living it just for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll get through.
Yeah. And Mia, any last words from you?
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. I know people are probably listening and thinking it's overwhelming and it's a lot, but you've made a choice to put yourself first by getting out. So take the steps you need to get your resolution, to cut the ties, and this too shall pass. It does get better.
And you've got us by your side, so you'll be all right.
Yeah. Thank you, Mia.
Okay, thank you, Mia, for your time, and thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you so much.
No worries, darling. Bye, Rosie. Bye, everyone.
If you found this podcast helpful, we'd love it if you could rate, review and subscribe. By doing so, you are spreading the word to help someone else just like you. Lynn would like to remind you that this podcast is general advice only, and you should always get legal advice in relation to your particular situation. And remember that the Australian laws may have changed since recording.